As usual, on our Saturday forum, we do a very informal update of things that we think you might find of interest from a state legislative perspective, and then kind of turn it over to you for ideas, suggestions. And so, I think most of you know that we are technically not in session. Our legislative session ended in May, but interim committees have become an issue, kind of the norm for us at the state legislature. So there's always things going on, even though we're not in session. And I would just kick off with flagging timing. October and November is truly the very best time to come to us with bill ideas. And so even if you don't know a bill, or if you're not a lawyer, you're not a drafter, if there's an issue you want addressed or a problem you want solved, and the reason I say October, November is truly the best time is by December 1st, we really start coming into our first wave of deadlines. And it gets much, much harder to try and get a bill introduced after those deadlines. And Representative Brenda Fields, who I told you would be joining us, has joined us. And so any of us that are here, we cover both chambers, obviously, for what's there. And so if you have a very specific idea, that's great. If you have just a generic concept or priority that you would really like to see worked on, we can help work with you to turn kind of the problem and the solution into what might be some bill ideas. So just and it doesn't have to be today, but if you think of something, do try and get it to us with as much advanced lead before December 1st as possible, and that will maximize the chances that we can get something through. So what I thought I'd do is just a very quick overview of the committees that are meeting right now, and turn it over to my colleagues to highlight what they think are kind of key updates from their perspective. So going on now is the Early Childhood and School Readiness Legislative Commission, the Off-Highway Vehicle Interim Committee, all kinds of topics. The standing one we have is the Police Officers and Firefighters Pension Reform Commission. That meets every year. And we have a profiling initiated contacts for policing reform. It came out of a bill we did over the last legislative session to try and update our profiling laws for the state of Colorado, and that has started. We had the School Safety and Youth in Crisis Committee, and this was born out of different issues we've faced with violence. This was a bipartisan measure addressing violence in our schools. And the Transportation Legislation Review Committee, TLRC, so transportation meets on the interim as well. We have an interim committee on vocational rehab services for the blind. And Water Resources Review Committee is a standing where these become more regional rather than partisan issues. A lot of times we've got a water plan that the governor has put out there that is being looked at. And then the Wildfire Matters Review Committee, which has still been doing some follow-up work after basically a series of different fires we've had at the state level. All of these are online. So like everything else we do in the legislature, if any one of those topics sounds like it might be of interest to you, let's say you're interested in early childhood education, if you go to the Colorado General Assembly website, there will be a button for committees and for interim committees. And then you can pull down the agendas. The schedules are online, the agendas are online, and then after a meeting happens, they have a nonpartisan write-up on the summary of what happened at that meeting. And so if you can't get there, you're always invited to go, but if you can't get there, you could just download a written summary of what came out of it. And many of these interim committees do have the ability to introduce bills for the next legislative session without necessarily counting against the usual 5-bill limit. So as they get further along over the next month or so, some of these you'll start to see very early draft bill proposals coming out of some of those. And you can bookmark them, and we're so modern, we have tweets coming out from our staff if you want to stay at home and monitor. Or you can get the audio from your internet at home, or you can show up in person. So that's a quick overview of what we've got going on in the summer, and I will turn it over to Senator Todd.
Let me jump in. Well, I'll talk transportation. This has been an interesting interim for transportation. How many of you are recognizing and noticing 225 and all of the inconvenience for a little bit, but my gosh, it is so exciting because it is happening, and by 2016 we will have the trains running out to DIA and the opportunity to go all over from our infamous 9-mile park and ride, and we can go south, we can go downtown, we can go to the airport. So all of those things are happening. So along with that, when you see that kind of development, good morning, Graham.
Morning.
With all of that development, we will continue to see growth along the way with retail, with residential. There is an opportunity for apartments right now to be built north of Heather Gardens, and so that will be something that is going to be taking place, and so we'll start continuing to see those cranes all over. And I don't know about you, but I get really excited when I see the cranes because that means people are working, it means progress is happening, and that we are seeing growth in a defined manner. And so TLRC met this last week twice, and one of the days we spent going out to the I-70 viaduct, by the Purina dog chow is what I always call it. So we held our noses and stood under the viaduct as we're talking and looking up and saying, why are we standing underneath this viaduct? It's in horrible condition, and quite honestly, 60% of the square footage for bridges in Colorado is from the I-70 viaduct. It will be lowered, so that bridge will eventually come down. It will be lowered, and I really believe that CDOT, along with the community right around I-70, have been extremely responsible with how it's going to look. I'll pass around, I didn't make additional copies, but I'll pass this around so you can see what the viaduct looks like today and then what it will look like. And so the development, the partnerships between city, school district, and CDOT to make that a more livable and safe community. Did you want to?
Yeah, I'd like to interject. What's the projected construction schedule for that?
It will take a good couple of years. And let's see if I have my cheat sheet, just a minute, to give the exact layout, because I can't remember off the top of my head. It's going to be a couple of years because they're going to do it in segments. I'll tell you what, let me look for it and then I'll speak to it. Yeah. But it is already, part of what they have to do is they have to remedy the environment around. So several of the older homes that are right there have asbestos, have lead, and so it's not like they can just tear them down and throw them in the trash. It has to be remedied in a very sequential manner, and so that's part of what takes place. And then before the bridge comes down, the lower bridge will start being built, and so people will start being able to make that transport. But I'll pass this around because I think it's interesting to kind of look at how it is going to turn into a much safer environment. It is going to be cleaned up in terms of where people are living. The school will be receiving new HVAC and windows and doors to make sure that safety and the noise during the construction is not going to impair some of the learning for children. That was a major concern. It was a major concern. The playground area right now is very limited. It will expand, and again, it'll be in cooperation with Denver. So even though that's not Aurora, we all go on I-70, and that is crucial because right now there are no shoulders on either side of the 6 lanes. So if you have a flat tire, good luck. You're going to stop the traffic. There's no place to pull over and change your tire. And so it will eventually be 10 lanes. There will be 2 lanes that are toll on each side, and that is again optional. No one is required to pay that, but if you want to go at a faster rate, if you want to move with more people in your car, you will have some of those opportunities. So that was a big deal. The other thing that we did is we went up to Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed Martin is one of our #1 aerospace leaders for Colorado. In fact, they were instrumental in a launch that took place on Friday down in Florida. The parts are parts for NASA. Much of it comes from United Launch Alliance, from Lockheed Martin. Right here in Colorado, we are in many cases the #1 state in the nation. Most people think it's Florida, California, Texas, Alabama, but Colorado per capita, the number of people that are working in Lockheed Martin in aerospace are great. One of the things that comes out of all of these interim committees that Morgan mentioned is that you have an opportunity to present 5 committee bills, 5 TLRC bills, or 5 early childhood bills. And so we heard from quite a few different groups. One of the bills that is being proposed was a bill that came up last year, and this is again for a requirement for proper tires for I-70 during winter driving. So that bill will be coming back. It passed only to be studied more, and then the research has shown that yes, indeed, the reason traffic gets stopped is because of vehicles, passenger vehicles. We've already done that with trucks. And then we had a couple of other bills that have come up. There's a lot of conversation about the progress that we're making with our tolling, with the BRT that up to bus rapid transit up in Boulder to go up on Highway 36 and that expansion. And so again, when people scream and say, well, we don't like tolling, there was a choice that the citizens in Colorado had with C and D, and that was to raise revenue for transportation. The public chose not to do that, and so therefore, for infrastructure for our state, and for roads and bridges, it has to be paid for, and there's no other alternative. And so tolling it's here to stay. It's not going to go away, and until people make a decision that they're ready to invest a little bit more. Gas tax is always discussed. It hasn't been raised since the 90s. All of our surrounding states that are very conservative states have all passed an increase in gas tax. We have not, and so therefore we have to figure out a way to pay for safety and public safety in driving. So I could go on and on about transportation. I'm excited about all of the things that are taking place in Colorado. Many other visitors from around the world are coming, I said around the world, are coming to Colorado to see what we're doing from Union Station throughout up north, right here in Aurora, and so we are on the road to recovery and moving forward with that.
Nancy, you have 2 things that have been in the papers lately on transportation. One is the toll road on I-70. Do you have anything to do with that, or is that CDOT that actually decides that?
It's CDOT. It's CDOT.
And the other thing was something like 150 some odd million for the new offices for CDOT. How did that come about, and is that really necessary? I mean,
Good. Thanks for bringing that up. Absolutely, it is necessary. The buildings that are currently holding CDOT were buildings from the 30s and the 40s. They've outgrown them. And so as we continue to expand and bring in new personnel and bring in workers for the Colorado Department of Transportation, is what CDOT stands for, there's no place for them to be. And so the need for the building structures actually needs to have happened probably a long time ago. It comes out of a different pocket of money. So some people are saying, well, if we have a shortage of transportation money for roads and bridges, why are we spending $150 million for buildings? Which is kind of, obviously, that came out the day before we met. It was like, okay, this is going to be, the first question. And it really is, it's kind of like in schools or in anything else, there's a maintenance pot of money, and then there is capital construction, and this is really the capital construction piece that needs to come to expand on it.
One other thing too, your opposition sends out a newsletter, and they say that the Democrats killed their idea for solving all of this problem. What are they actually talking about? Because they just talk in general terms.
Yeah, I think probably what that was referencing was a bill that came out this last year, and it was to, for us to do the transbonding like we did for, not light rail.
T-Rex.
T-Rex. And so CDOT and many of us opposed that simply because it was a matter of, okay, so let's build it, but we still have no money for maintenance. So it was not thorough, it was not comprehensive.
It was multi-billion dollars of debt with no way to pay for it.
Yeah. So that was what was their good idea that went down. And again, you know, come to the table and let's have good conversations. But let's not just say, well, let's go build it, but now we can't take care of it. It has to be a comprehensive plan and a full package. We have a new CDOT director, Shaylin Bott, and he is very committed to solving many of the problems that we're facing and looking at working with CDOT and as well as the federal government.
Did that bill go down on party line votes, or was it?
I believe it was party line vote.
I would just add that actually they had lost some Republicans on the bill who felt that going into debt would violate Tabor.
Yeah.
And then some initial votes were told to be reconsidered by the Republican leadership in the Senate. Eventually it became party line, but originally the opposition was actually bipartisan opposition.
Right. I had forgotten that, Morgan. Yeah,
Right,
that was
they
like
had to go back and
I thought
be
we
told to
voted
go
on
fix
that.
their votes.
Oh, no, we had to go back and vote again. Yeah, so
Yep.
that's right, thank you. Some of those things you kind of wipe from your memory.
Right.
So the last thing I will mention is that as transportation continues to be at the forefront, I had the opportunity as the chair for Council of State Governments for the Western region to join other legislators from around the country to go to the Panama Canal a couple of weeks ago. And in looking at what is happening with the expansion and making sure that the new locks that are being built are wider so that they can transport, the boats are bigger and they're able to transport more containers on a boat at a time, which hopefully will keep costs down rather than having separate boats for numerous things. On ships and boats, rowboats, Mr. Navy man.
A sailor is
Right, ships and big boats, and yes, and so it was really interesting to see the security, high security, of who comes in and how products are really scanned to make sure that they're safe. And even though we don't have a big waterway of products coming to Cherry Creek Dam or Reservoir or Aurora Reservoir, we end up getting the containers from our Western region friends, and so along the Seattle and looking at those partnerships. And so when we had that opportunity to look at the spectrum of the impact, and we met with the Chamber of Commerce and the Pan Am Chamber of Commerce and the U.S. Embassy, and so looking at how important those trade relationships are, and to make sure that the product safety that is ultimately ending up in Colorado, but has come a long ways in making sure that that has been safe and in a secure manner. So that's kind of another piece, and I could talk about some other things, but I'll let that go, and I'll make sure I have the timeline here.
Oh, I just wanted a ballpark, so
Yeah.
2 years out, that's fine.
Thanks.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm Sue Ryden, State Representative, House District 36, candidate for Senate District 29, and I see some new faces in our crowd today, so that's really great to see you all here. Before we go any further, I would like to recognize someone in our audience today who is celebrating a very special birthday in another couple of weeks, and that is our own Graham Witherspoon. He will be 95. And his party is at the Aurora Center for Active Adults on the 17th at, what time?
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. You know where the Aurora Center for Active Adults, formerly known as the Aurora Senior Center on Del Mar Parkway and 6th Avenue. So
What date is that?
The 17th.
I'm having the 7th. That isn't my birthday, but it's close. Okay. 17th. It's a Saturday.
Okay, great.
Happy birthday, Graham.
Yes. Yes.
Graham and I celebrate a birthday together, and because my birthday is the day before his, he
Yeah.
says I'm older than he is.
I also, along the lines of what Senator Todd was talking about with the Panama Canal, I don't know how many people have been through the Panama Canal, but seriously, it's hard for even boats to get through there anymore. I mean, even boats, little ones. But shout out to CH2M Hill, our very own Colorado-based company that it did the entire project management for the expansion of the Panama Canal. They're also doing the Brazil Olympics, and they did the London Olympics, and they've done projects all around the world. And then in our own backyard, they supervised the Prairie Waters Project, which now has made us known around the world for innovative water use, reuse, etc. So just want to shout out to them. Some of the things that the committees that I serve on in the interim are the Audit Committee, which is a year-round committee, and the Health Exchange Oversight Committee, which is also year-round now but meets in the interim. And in our Audit Committee, one of the interesting reports that we got this summer was on the study that we had commissioned to have done about PARA, which is the Public Employees Retirement Fund. And the impetus behind that study was to see whether PARA measures up against other states and other private pension funds and other just private investing in general. And it was interesting to see that the report came back and said that PARA, the way we're running it now, is pretty much the best plan they could find. Public, private, you name it, which was really kind of a shock to a lot of people to think that we would be, you know, in that category. And they also showed how much it would cost in the billions of dollars if we were to switch from the PARA defined benefit to a defined contribution plan. And so I think the sentiment after we heard their report was, gosh, maybe this is something that we should stick with after all, and yet I know there will continue to be conversations about it, but it was a good report nonetheless. And then on the Health Exchange Oversight Committee, I'd say the two big concerns going on right now is the next enrollment period. They're very focused on trying to make the customer experience much better. I would think that as we've added more new people to the exchange, that there are now going to be more renewals than new folks signing up, which should ease the situation somewhat. We're also working on an agreement with the Healthcare Policy and Finance through Medicaid to get reimbursed for all the time that our counselors are spending helping people know which way to go, because everyone has to go through the same portal to get in. And then you have to pass the Medicaid test, or actually you have to fail it, before you can actually go to the exchange and buy your insurance. So they're doing a lot of work trying to streamline that piece of it, as well as get reimbursed by Medicaid for all the time that's being spent with those folks. So that's one big issue that they're looking at. I think you might have seen in the paper today that the cooperative health nonprofit is really concerned now because Medicaid has said that they are only going to reimburse like 12.5% of what was expected and promised. So there's going to be a lot of scrambling to see how we're going to remedy that situation and what's going to happen there. So, and they were very aggressive in marketing last year, and they attracted about 80,000 policyholders. So we do have certainly a safety net under any insurance company in Colorado. They all pay into the premium fund that then funds if a company should fail. So the consumers will be protected, but it could be a big blow to that whole operation and to, you know, the ripple effect through the industry. One of the things I think I've mentioned before that I'm working on and have made my main mission for this next year is the Fitzsimmons State Veterans Nursing Home Community Living Center. And we all heard the good news that the VA hospital has now been funded, another $650 million, so we're thinking it will be completed by maybe 2017. And on the same campus is our State Veterans Nursing Home Community Living Center. and that is a state property. You know, we're very limited in the state as far as what we can do for our veterans. We don't really have a budget for that, aside from the $1 million grant fund that we passed last year and a few other small things that we do. It's primarily a federal issue to take care of our veterans. And they do pay for the veterans who are in the nursing home. So that is paid by the VA, but it's a state property and a state responsibility. And we have the nursing home there now. It's on Fitzsimmons, Anschutz campus near Montview and Peoria. It's really nice. People love being there. And originally the plan called for a whole campus there. And we do have the land, the state owns it. And it was designed for sort of a continuum of care, where you would start out where you wouldn't need as many services, and gradually more and more assisted living, and finally then into the nursing home. We have not built out the other pieces, and I think it's really time that we have got to focus on that, and we have to do that. We give a lot of lip service to our veterans, and this is one really, really tangible way that we can show our respect and provide something that they've earned. They've earned it.
Yeah.
Sue, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
People are in there now, and is there a waiting line to get in? Is it, or how many people are in there?
They're always almost at capacity.
And
And
what
it's
is
veterans and veteran spouses when there is space available. And there are some, you know, financial requirements in order to be able to go there and that sort of thing.
Is it that, like 2 or 3 years out, like you have to fill out paperwork and then maybe they'll get to you?
I haven't heard that at all.
Okay.
No. But when the VA hospital gets built and the nursing home downtown or at 9th, we're not sure exactly what will happen to that facility. There's talk now that they might keep that piece open. But no doubt, with it so close to the hospital, there's going to be added pressure on this facility, and it's the only one between here and Florence. So, yeah, so one thing that we're working on is kind of a in-the-weeds sort of thing, but when we first did the nursing home statute, about, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the nursing homes around the state, we have 4 others around the state that are state veterans nursing homes. They were concerned that if we built in the metro area that it would pull people from their areas and they would then lose residents. Well, that has not happened, but the statute was written in such a way that there were various requirements and a lot of hurdles that you had to cross in order to build facilities. So there's a question about whether this would be a new facility or not, and the question about whether that law needs some tweaking in order to make that happen. So we're working on that detail right now. So anyway, that is the major thing that I'm working on as Chair of State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. This is really, really important to us, and I think to everybody in the state of Colorado. And I think we can just make this commitment. Our match would be somewhere in the area of $20–25 million over 20 or 30 years, and the feds would pay twice that to build it. So anyway, I'm hoping I can call on you guys for support when we get to that point. You had a question?
So my question is, what actually is the occupancy for this facility you're talking about?
The nursing home itself, I think, has like 180 beds. I could be wrong. Yeah. And they run at about 95% occupancy. They have to keep some rooms open just for that emergency case that might come in. They can't be totally full. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much, and I'll be calling on all you guys to help us when we need it. Now.
Have you got any feedback on your free day for state parks for veterans? How did that go over?
So it went from having a free Veterans Day holiday to having a free month, which is August. And so we have not heard a tally, and I'm not sure if the Park Service is keeping a tally of folks coming through. They just have to show an ID or have a license plate, so I'm not sure if the park personnel themselves are actually keeping a tally of that. But all of the military and veterans that I talked to are really happy that we did it. So hopefully, and we did it at a good time of the year when it's still nice out and you can camp and do all those things. So I think people are enjoying that. And then our military are also really happy that we passed the bill that would allow the state residents to maintain their Colorado residency and get their state income tax exempted while they are serving. So we had not had that before. So that's going to encourage some of our folks not to take up residency in Texas and Florida so they can get that exemption. Yeah.
I'm just curious, so this facility holds 180 beds, I guess. Why, is it a budgetary thing that they wouldn't build up and do more like a high-rise facility to accommodate more? Because obviously as time goes on, there's going to be a greater need for rooms. Why wouldn't they kind of look forward to what's going to happen 20, 30 years down the road and actually build something to accommodate the numbers that they're going to need down the road?
There was a very comprehensive study done just this past year that estimated the total numbers as we go forward, like for another 50 years. I personally think they underestimated the numbers. You know, we have had like an ongoing war now since 2003, and that wasn't in any of the estimates earlier. Now they're starting to sort of build that in, and I don't think they anticipated the huge number of Vietnam-era vets that are going to be seeking care, who probably got out of the military, never looked back, don't know what they did with their DD-214, never thought they would ever talk to the VA again, and now they're in need. And now they need the services, and now they're coming in very large numbers. So that's a long, long conversation, not an easy answer at this point. They think the nursing home is adequate for what it's doing, but we need these other two pieces to give that continuum of care. That's the main focus right now. But you're right, I think a high-rise situation, you know, on a small campus like that could be the answer, but I'm not an expert in building these facilities, and so I think we'll really want to get information from what other states are doing and how it's working elsewhere and even in the private sector. So that's yet to be determined. Yeah, thank you. Let me give time for other folks now.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's so exciting to see you all here because this is the season that we're getting ready to go into politics. I don't know if you've been noticing it yet, but we've seen a couple of game shows. That's what I call them. When you saw the debates, when they were all behind those podiums, it looked to me like it was almost like there was some game show. But what is so exciting to me is that I get a chance to represent Aurora and the state of Colorado. And I believe that we are doing some great things. You probably all heard about the shooting that just took place, the school shooting, where I think the number was 10. I think the number might be now down to 9. Several people were injured because of that shooting. And when I think about what we've already done in the state of Colorado as it relates to making sure that we have universal background checks, that is good work that we can be proud of, because there's other states who can't say that they have universal background checks. And basically what that means, if you want to purchase a gun, you have to get a background check for a new gun, for a used gun, or a private sale. Now there are statistics and surveys across the nations that indicates that most people believe that you should be able to, they support background checks because it's proven that it keeps guns out of the hands of people who may be mentally ill or who may have some kind of other criminal background that disqualifies them for having a gun. So I'm proud to say in our state, in the state of Colorado, we can check that off. That says that's something that we've achieved. Now, is it going to prevent all these kinds of mass shootings from happening? Probably not. But at least we can say it keeps those kinds of guns out of the hands of folks who might have some kind of qualifying issues that prevents them from having a gun. So that's really good. What I've been doing this summer is really spending a lot of time in the community. And once again, I'm so proud of what we're doing. This last Saturday, I think it was, we had the unveiling of the Martin Luther King statue in front of the Martin Luther King Library. I'm told that's the first of its kind across the state. It is a full-figure statue. This past week, we did the unveiling, or the ribbon cutting. Edna and John Mosley, they're legends in Aurora. A school was named after them. We had a ribbon cutting. A K-8 school was named after them. That is good work. We still have more good work to do. Some of the things that I'm focused on as it relates to 2016 legislation is dealing with a bill that I sponsored not too long ago, was a bill to address increasing the number of teachers of color in our state. When I ran my bill, it was 41-1 in reference to teachers of color. Now the statistic has gone up to 51 to 1. So we're increasing the number of minority students in our schools, but yet the representation in reference to who's in front of them is you're not seeing teachers of color. So I'd like to once again run legislation to help us look at what we can do to increase diversity as it relates to those who are teaching our kids, because we live in a world that is diverse. And another issue that I'm focused on as it relates to public schools is this whole issue that you've heard about, which is from school to prison pipeline. Being approached by even as early as early childhood education. In preschool, kids are getting suspended because they're acting out, and sometimes their teachers or whoever's in charge do not know how to handle them. They're suspending these kids at 5 years old. You saw nationally there was an issue where a young kid brought a clock to school. He wanted to show it off to his teacher because he was proud that he created this clock. The teacher was threatened by the clock and because of his faith. And so they arrested him. They interrogated him for over an hour and 20 minutes, and they handcuffed him. It was just a clock. It wasn't a bomb. There was no need to be threatened by that. In looking at our statute, there's really not clear legislation as it relates to, do you allow for police to be interrogating and questioning your kid without notifying the parent? We'll be looking into legislation that's going to be addressing that kind of issue. Also, public safety. Public safety is always an important issue for me. I think I mentioned to you the last town hall meeting that I was going to have a couple of stakeholders meetings to address sexual assaults on campus. Nationally, sexual assault on campus is 4 to 1, which means that out of every 4 women, 1 will be sexually assaulted on campus. And the rate for men is increasing by 7%. And so we have issues right here in the state which deals with how sexual assault is handled on college campuses. Sometimes it's dealt like a code of conduct issue. So what's happening is you have women and men who are still having to go to school and see the person that did this horrible act to them. They're attending the same school as them. So I held a statewide meeting on this with community colleges and higher ed, talking about this issue of sexual assault, because we want to make sure that when we send our kids to any school, preschool, middle school, high school, college, of course we want them to be in an environment where they're safe, where they can learn. So the Lieutenant Governor addressed these advocates and these professionals that work on this campus to talk about what kinds of things can we do to prevent sexual assault, to end rape on campus, as well as have more of an awareness and a process to respond. And the response would be not only for the victim, but also for those who may be accused. So we want to have a balanced approach. So there's going to be some legislation that you're going to see that's going to address sexual assault on college campus. I think in the last thing that I have that I want to mention that I think is important is traffic. I represent right now Aurora, House District 42, which is North Aurora, and I am running for Senate District 29 in 2016. And my community is really frustrated right now with the closures and the traffic that's happening right now, especially by the Aurora Town Hall Center, up and down, I guess that would be Alameda. And then where I live at on 13th and Sable, they have Kiwi construction. There's a lot of trucks that are going all up and down the streets, and they're overutilizing and taking advantage of the space over there. And that's a hot concern. So I'm getting a lot of constituent mail on this topic, which I have forwarded on to get response. But this issue regarding traffic as it relates to all the development, which I'm excited to see, is causing some hardship if you try to drive down Sable. How many of you have tried to go down Sable or Alameda lately? It's difficult, isn't it?
We can't. I haven't tried because we can't.
And if you try to go down Chambers because people are being detoured, you know, typically it would only take me maybe 10 minutes to get down Chambers to get to the other side. And now it's taking more like 20 minutes. So it's my understanding, and I believe this is true, that there wasn't much communication to the neighbors in reference to what was going to happen as it relates to these closures. So I'm trying to get some answers to that. It is causing some great concern. I'm looking at what I can do about that. But people are excited about the development, but they're also concerned about the level of traffic that's taking place, that's detouring into some of their communities. So we're still open and receptive to any bill ideas that you might have. I know that I'm working on my ideas, making sure that I'm getting the right stakeholders at the table so that whatever I come forward is good public policy.
In light of the shooting in Oregon, I would love to see Colorado reconsider a bill that they defeated, and that is to ban guns from college campuses.
Amen.
It was a couple years ago, it didn't make it when all those other great bills did, but do you know of any effort to reintroduce that?
I do not know of any effort. Do you guys aware of banning? I know that, I think it was Representative Levy that ran that bill a couple of sessions ago, and that bill wasn't successful. I don't know what appetite there is for that, but I know some of the things that I would be willing to look at, and I am looking at, I didn't mention this, but I'm looking at behavioral health as it relates to children.
That's important too.
And so that's going to be my next stakeholders meeting, because I'm really concerned about the trauma, behavioral health. If you see the common thread between these shootings, it appears to be linked to some kind of mental health behavioral issue, and what can we do in early on, upstream, to identify people that might need services and treatment to prevent these kinds of things from happening moving forward. Go ahead,
Is
ma'am.
there some kind of a limit as to how many guns a person can purchase within a certain length of time?
No. In fact,
How can this person own 13 guns, and there's no record that's saying that he's already bought guns, he doesn't need to buy anymore?
and I learned this, I didn't realize this until I ran gun legislation, but I was told that the average gun owner has 7 guns. And so when I read my legislation, of course, there was an increase in the sale of guns. And people weren't just buying one gun. They were buying boxes of bullets and more than one gun, all kind, whatever they could buy.
Well, you know, fear sells.
Fear
People are
sells.
fearful. Fear sells.
Go ahead.
So you had mentioned background checks, or on the topic, you mentioned background checks, and that's a great start, but it's barely getting to where we need to be. And I know that there were a couple of politicians in Colorado that were evicted from office or recalled or whatever you want to say because they had voted for gun control. Does that scare you guys as politicians? Are you willing to stand up to the NRA? Do you believe that we need to do things like ban automatic and semi-automatic weapons? I mean, you mentioned, yes, people are mentally ill, but you also got to look at the demographics of who's doing the shooting, and it's males between 15 and 35 years old.
Right.
A lot of them are immature, their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed, they shouldn't probably even be given that, they don't have impulse control. So what else is being done? And are you, as politicians, are you afraid of the NRA? Are you afraid of standing up for what you think is right because you're afraid of losing your position in office? Or are you willing to do what it takes and what the people in the state really want, which I believe is
That's a great question, and I can only speak for myself. And I think the president said it very well after the shooting in Oregon. He says, your thoughts and prayers are not enough. Because what it is going to take, it is going to take political courage. And I have been one who have been proven, and then many of them here, all these legislators here have stepped up and supported measures to ensure reform as it relates to gun safety. I'm not quite sure what's going to come forward in 2016, but I can tell you the body of people that you see in front of you have demonstrated political courage to fight against the NRA at great risk. At great risk as it relates to our party, we've taken great risk. Politically, we have taken great risk. And I think that if we came up with something that was good and positive and right legislation, you would find the same level of support for it as well. But I think we have seen from the governor all the way down political courage as it relates to addressing good gun safety reform in the state of Colorado.
So
is there more work?
Are we moving forward on that? Are we acting on that, or are we just talking about it?
I think we're acting on it because we will see coming up in 2016 more legislation where they're going to try to roll back and repeal what we've already done. There's going to be someone, I'm quite sure, that's going to say we don't need background checks. There's going to be someone that's going to say you don't need to be trained to use a gun. There's going to be someone that says that we want you to have a high-capacity magazine that has 100 bullets in it. Right now it's capped to 15. Someone's going to try to undo everything that we've done. It's going to be up to us, I believe, to have the political courage and will to say we're not going to go back when we see a whole nation is trying to move forward on some of these issues. So it's not everything, and you might see something, I don't know what it is. I am not trying to run any legislation as it relates to gun reform, but I am going to be looking at issues as it relates to behavioral health and early intervention and early treatment, early diagnosis to help people and kids get the kind of treatment they need, because there's a huge gap right now between being diagnosed and getting the services that you need. So I'm going to try to close that gap. Now, if that's going to result in less gun shootings or something, I don't know, but that's going to be my way of trying to address this behavioral health issues, because everyone who has behavioral health issues don't go out and kill people. So it's not everyone. I have a behavioral health issue. I lost my son. I deal with his grief every day, but that doesn't make me want to go out and kill people. There's a lot of people who have issues. Depression, everybody has something going on.
Follow the money. Bernie Sanders said as long as we spend 40% of our time raising money so we can get reelected, and NRA gives them that money,
That's right.
we're not going to have gun legislation out of Washington.
I have a question here and there.
Well, statistics I wanted to say earlier was I understand there are fewer gun owners in the country, but more guns. You were talking about how many people have guns. But I'd like to commend this group because I think they all did have a lot of political courage in the last legislature. But it doesn't really good if they're not in a majority, if they can't get legislation passed. And so I know Senator Todd went to Colorado Springs, I think, and worked against the recall. You know, so they can have a lot of courage, but if people really want what you're suggesting, then we all have to get out there and work and talk to people in other parts of the state, and we can't just rely solely on them. Sorry.
That's true.
Agreement is
Here, here, and here.
I'll be very brief. What about gun shows? Like you can go to a gun show and maybe purchase a gun. Do they do any background checks? They do
the
now?
voters passed
Okay.
that.
Yeah, we closed that loophole. Yes.
Voters did, yeah.
And you know, the statistics, you can go online and look at the statistics, and the statistics are very good as it relates to the number of background checks that we were performed that denied people access to guns. So it was like over 1,000. And this includes private as well as with gun shows. So it is keeping guns out of the hands of some people who aren't eligible to have guns.
There's a quick, easy solution in the Capitol building in Washington where the Congress is. If you remove all those metal detectors that you have to go through to get in there, and just allow anybody to walk in that wants to with a gun in their pocket, you see a change in the legislation.
Yeah, one of my big concerns is mental illness, and the state of Colorado ranks about last insofar as psych beds are concerned, and the state hospital at Fort Logan has been degraded from 250 beds to now 94, and people that are mentally ill don't think. I had a son that had schizophrenia, so I know very well, and he bought two 357 Magnum pistols with a big box of ammunition, and he would have been, in my opinion, a front page incident, and it was one of the things that I was so happy for, that he had a spot at Fort Logan. He passed away, he's no longer alive, and he was a highly intelligent person, but he had this terrible illness of schizophrenia. And I think that you all ought to take some consideration of increasing the bed capacity at Fort Logan. because people that are mentally ill need to have a security of a place like Port Oak.
I want to say something on timing here, because the budget committee starts doing figure setting in November. So because of you, we've reached out to Senator Stedman on the Senate side to see if we can't work back in a department request for an increase of bed size capacity, which is the issue you've been working on so long. And now's the time to reach out to the House counterparts on the Joint Budget Committee as well. It's possible after November to change, but it's harder. So now is really the right time, and I would say for everybody else that's here, the Joint Budget Committee is 6 members. We can pass this request on to them. You can advocate not only with the people who represent you in the legislature, but it's only 6 emails or 6 letters, and now, before November 1st, so literally right now over the next couple weeks is the most effective time if you want to help amplify Graham's request to urge the Joint Budget Committee to make an increase of mental health beds at Fort Logan a priority. I would love it if we could see it at least start to reverse the trend, and maybe we're not back to 250 overnight, but I think we need to show some progress about increasing bed space here, and I would just weigh in that now is exactly the perfect time to be advocating with the Joint Budget Committee to try and get that in this year's budget.
Well, after Representative Buckner speaks, I would maybe like to come back to this topic and talk about that facility and whether we might need to even be looking at a new, different facility. So I think we ought to let Rep. Buckner speak, though, and since we're getting close to noon.
Yes. Hi, I'm Representative Janet Buckner, and I haven't gotten used to that title of Representative Janet Buckner yet, but I'm still just Janet. So I just want you to know, for those of you who haven't met me, I am filling the seat for my husband, the late John Buckner. When he died, I was asked to fill his seat, and it was a difficult decision in many ways, but it was a very easy decision in other ways, because I know what he wanted for this community. I know what he wanted for his constituents. Our passions are the same. I'm a former educator, and also I worked in corporate America as a medical sales trainer for many, many years. Retired at the age of 60 when I was let go from my job because I turned 60, imagine that. So I know what it feels like to be a person who has lost their job. Then you don't want to retire because you can't, you don't have a pension coming in, you have no way to access more money, and you need retraining to get back into the workforce. So what I'm finding out as a new representative is I love to listen to what people want. If we don't hear from you, just like Senator Carroll said, if we don't know what's important to you, what you don't like what we're doing, what you do like what we're doing, if we don't know, we can't move forward and be effective for you. But let me get off that soapbox right now. I was sworn in June, so I've only been doing this a few months. So I'm getting hit from lots of different areas of things that I want to focus on as a state representative. I've been assigned to the Health, Insurance, and Environment Committee. Really excited about that because I have that background in medical sales. Then I'm also going to be on the Education Committee, and my husband was the chair of the Education Committee. And for those of you who were listening to Senator Carroll when she said you can listen to what's going on in all these committees, I sat home every day and listened on audio to all the Education Committee meetings, and I feel like I'm going to be an asset to that committee, and I'm going to be able to hit the ground running because I know what's going on in that committee in particular. Yesterday, I got to go to Arapahoe County Courthouse. I was invited to observe Recovery Court, and I went to a graduation. I was so impressed. It was just amazing. And everybody said, take your tissue with you when you go, and I thought, why? I didn't know this program was out there. I was ignorant that there was a program like that, but it was pretty amazing. There were a lot of veterans there who unfortunately had mental problems, substance abuse problems. This program is absolutely phenomenal because it helps these people mainstream back into society. So that's something I didn't know was available. And I was thrilled to be able to witness the graduation and be there to congratulate all these people. I've also been going to a lot of meetings hearing about
new bills that are going to be possibly run. And what I'm hearing is people really want to have a way to prepare for retirement. My son has been speaking this loud and clear. He's 43 years old. He works for a small company that doesn't have a retirement program. He said, Mom, how am I going to retire? Am I going to have to work till I'm 80? You know, it's a real possibility because so many people don't have that ability. So I am really interested in running a bill that would allow retirement security for no matter what your age, to give you more retirement security where a business can let you opt into a program where you can deposit money and the company would match that money, so you would have a possibility of having your retirement money there when you do retire. Still learning about that bill, still learning about what it's going to take to get that passed, but I think that is really, really crucial. And if we do this, it's going to help the state of Colorado, it's going to help the employers, and it's also going to help the employees. So that's something I'm really interested in moving forward. The other thing I'm really interested in, and my husband was an advocate of this, is parental leave. Representative Fields worked on that bill last year, and I want to be a part of that bill to provide parents the ability to be able to leave work to go to a conference if they have to, or a meeting with teachers or the principal or whoever. So this is something else that I'm focusing on. When I listen to some of those committee meetings and listen to the testimony of parents and teachers who know how important it is for parents to be involved, parental leave with pay is really important. So that's something else I'm interested in. I just got a call last week about another possible bill, and it's equal pay for equal work for people in Colorado. Boy, who doesn't want to get equal pay for a job well done? So I'm learning about this bill and if it's feasible and what it would do to help the people of Colorado. So that's another point of interest for me. The other thing I'm finding out as a new state representative, there are so many bills out there and legislation, and people don't know what's out there. And I'm trying to figure out a way, as all these ladies are, to get the word out to people of, here's what's available to you. Here's what's available to help you. There's a wonderful couple in the back, and they had some issues, and I'm trying to help them figure out ways to access programs that are already in effect, and people don't know about them. That's frustrating to me to know that there's programs out there, so that's something else I'm interested in doing. Let's see, I think that was about it. But I'm fresh meat, so I'm getting hits from so many different areas, but I'm so excited about what I'm doing and the ability to step into my husband's shoes, and those are big shoes to fill. He was a very bright man, a very caring man, and I'm going to do the best I can to be an amazing state representative. Yes?
You mentioned that it would be a good idea if a constituent or just a taxpayer could log on to a website and have a link in an area that they were concerned about, whether it's mental health or license plate, whatever, and then get a complete dossier of what has been done in that area and what is proposed and what bills are outstanding. That would be a great idea. I don't think we have that.
Do we have something like that?
The part that we could do right now is you can issue search legislation on the state's website for a current session and in past sessions. But where we could expand it is sort of this idea of a 411 or 211. There have been some cities who have experimented with one-stop calls, because all of the red taping, if you don't know where to start, if you don't know where to go, it's no wonder that it can be very complicated. And we would be pioneering a little bit, but there's an interesting idea of, so yes, you can issue search on the bills now if people know where to look, and that's a link we can get out there, and I think that's part of making sure people know that they can find bills. But when it comes to help outside of calling our office for what's there, I think Denver started a program like this. It seems to be that there's some municipalities that have taken the lead, but the concept is you have a 211, sort of a 411 idea. I'm a citizen, I'm a taxpayer, here's my issue, I need help. And to be able to get the state to kind of a one-stop shop like that, whether it's web-based, whether it's chat-based, phone-based, would, I think, be a phenomenal public service to the state.
One idea is a fantastic idea. At the VA hospital, one of the big problems we have with our patients, getting them into the systems, is they don't know how to massage the system. They don't know how to use the system. It's there for them. So that if somebody did call 211 and say, my son is experiencing some mental health issues, are there any bills, or what legislative person can I go to get that information? 211. An area that is an exemplary is when we have patients call who say, the first thing that they hear is if you're in danger, or if you'll be in danger, down 911. If you're in danger of losing your life, take down this number and call this 13-digit number. That's not going to work. So we're changing all of that, and when somebody says yes, instead of, they're not going to write down a 13-digit number and dial it if they're in the middle of wanting to kill themselves. They just have to hit the number sign twice, and they'll immediately be connected with a live person who understands what the problem is. Same thing that happened, the 211 issue. I don't know if you use 211. Do we have that now? 211?
We don't. No, I think the major issue would just be how do we pay for it?
How do you pay for it?
Okay, so
Right.
you
How
know
do you
what?
pay for it?
Fiscal notes suck. I'm sorry. When we're losing lives, 900 a day to gun violence, and we have fiscal notes that we have to worry about, the same old story, the same story that I mentioned before. Legislative people in Washington worried about how they're going to get reelected when the issue is not that. It's what happened in Roseburg yesterday or 2 days ago. Okay, so I think that's a fantastic idea. And there's something for
Well,
you.
we've made some, I think we've made some good progress in that area. We do have the crisis hotline now for specific crisis situations, and they're still obviously getting the word out about the existence of that hotline. We also, through your representatives, and it doesn't have to be your own, but it's probably better if it is your own because you probably already have a relationship and you talk with each other occasionally, is we do have excellent staff at the Capitol who can research pretty much any question. Like if you've had a driver's license expire and you're having trouble getting it reinstated, or if you have a specific thing that happened to you or something you're trying to get through red tape-wise, we have really good staff people. They're nonpartisan staff who will research and help and contact you directly with resources and answers to your questions. That's a case-by-case basis. I think what you're talking about, what I'd love to see is if someone's going in and trying to research a topic and find out what bills have we passed on this issue, that'd be great. We do have it by sponsor, we have them by year, we have them by Senate or House. It'll give you the whole history of specific bills, and you just go to Colorado General Assembly, just Google that, and you can get there. But it doesn't have by topic, as far as I know.
It does.
I mean, does it?
Yeah, you can go by
If
topic.
you're-
You can go by topic.
Okay, yeah. So that could be helpful, but that's just the legislation. That doesn't even tell you which ones, I mean, immediately which ones became law. And then what do you do in the rulemaking and what agencies over that? I mean, it is a complicated thing. And if we could simplify that, I'm all for it.
You know the crisis hotline, and dialing in and try to get information, get a representative or senator to speak to you in that office about an issue that is imminent, something you have to be address an issue immediately. 8 out of 10 phone calls are met with a voicemail. That's no good. You can't make a phone call to any place in the Capitol, and I would say 8 out of 10 of the calls are met. Try to call the governor's office and not get a call back.
Well, the mental health hotline's 24 hours.
Yeah.
That's different than the Capitol.
Yeah, and it's not in the Capitol. It's-
I'm just
it's-
saying, but
yeah.
the point is, voicemail has taken over in many areas, and that's that's a bad thing.
What I was going to say is, these are just things I'm hearing, so I'm going to see what I can find out about getting the word out to you to let you know where some of these programs are. Programs that are already in effect. That was my main point. But the constituent services department at the Capitol is amazing. And I've been using them a lot to get information that I need.
And how does an average Joe go on the street who has never done it before? How can they get the constituent services?
To the legislator.
Through their legislator.
Through their legislator.
Yeah. And a lot of times, you know, it may not even be a state issue, it's a county issue. So working with our county commissioners, or even a city issue, is really important. That it is not everything needs to be resolved at the state level. In fact, quite honestly, many of the human services issues are county.
That's right.
And you will be remedied much faster through Arapahoe County than the state of Colorado.
Right. So go through your legislator and then we can pass the information on. But
Good luck.
thank you. We have to start with baby steps, right? Because as a new legislator, I'm starting with baby steps. And
And you know it's a two-way street.
I
If you
sure
need
do.
us out there, pick up the phone and tell us what you need us to do for you.
exactly. Well, who's an HD40 in this room? I'm calling you. Yes, PK is PK Kaiser, yes. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. So we'll be here for a little bit. We've technically got the room for an hour, but feel free to hang out and catch any of us on any topics, ideas.
And if I could just.
Are there other
make one-
people that may be in the audience that want to talk about an event that's coming or a special?
I just wanted to say for folks that are interested in working on more gun safety bills and that sort of thing, the Sullivans are here today. And I know they are very active in this area, and I'm sure they would love to have you come and join their group. So if you guys just
Could I
raise
say
your
one more
hand.
thing?
Thank you.
At 2 o'clock tomorrow, I'm having a major rally at my home for Bernie Sanders, and everybody is invited.
I'll be in LA.
All you have to do is log on to berniesanders.com and you'll find the address and the time.
Yeah.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things. I was at a meeting at the Supreme Court a couple of days ago where they're considering rules that affect judicial accountability and how that is represented. And the judiciary in Colorado has written the guidelines or rules that exempt themselves from the Colorado Open Records Act. So it is very difficult to get information about cases in Colorado. I know of people who have frustrations about a specific case where their family was affected and they can't get records. I know individuals who are trying to find out the rules governing how the electoral process works for judges and they can't get the records. It's really a terrible situation, and it looks like it's on the verge of becoming worse because they're rewriting instituting these new rules, and the public comment period was sort of bookended with this is one of the people that's proposing the legislation, this is one of the people that's supporting the legislation, and both of them were involved with the judicial committees that are involved in putting forth the rules, and everyone in between was actual members of the public that are standing up and saying, this reeks. This looks like you're making rules that govern your own conduct and what you have to present to the public as far as what you're doing. And that is an appearance of great impropriety. And so I wanted to make everyone aware of what's going on with the Colorado Open Records Act and the judicial system, partly because one of the issues that we all face is if we go to court and there is injustice in court, there is no recourse for those individuals who face that injustice. I saw this very personally and very clearly in cases that I'm familiar with in the probate courts, where probate courts took the resources of others unjustly without, and there was nothing to be done because the recourse is to go to a higher level of the same judges, and those judges rubber stamp what was done, and that's that. And so I want you all to be aware of what's going on with those things, because I feel that more just courts is one of the ways that we're going to be able to minimize the effects of people who become so frustrated and so angry that they do things like go out and shoot other people. These are not necessarily simply mental health issues. Mental health issues are linked to things like the pressures of a society that is pushing people down but it should be lifting them up. And I would like to attend that meeting with Bernie Sanders, because one of the things he wants to do is universal education for free for everyone all the way through college. I think this should be a right of every human being to have universal free education. It should not be that those who have the resources can improve themselves and stand higher than those who don't have the resources to do those things. It should be universal. This is something I have always felt, and to hear him say it made me go, yes, that is right. The other thing is universal health care. Health care should be a right as well.
And
it should not be
go to
something.
Canada to get a surgery that you can't get here in this country because of all the restricted covenants that every HMO has. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, this is another thing that I feel should be universal, that I would love to see the whole Democratic Party embracing, but I'm hearing it from the mouth of Bernie Sanders, so I just wanted to say those
So
things.
let me do a couple quick follow-up on a couple of the things you brought up. One, we have had bills before, and I think we will see in this upcoming session an attempt to look at the accountability and reporting through the judicial department, and frankly, I think we'll be working with you on it. And probably revisiting the judicial performance review. You heard also about some of the health exchange oversight at the state level. There is a ballot measure, just FYI, you might be interested in, that Senator Irene Aguilar, physician out of mental health, is doing for Colorado Cares. It is a state-based attempt to get something closer to universal coverage. It is admittedly written a bit strangely because it has to work around Tabor, so it has to be set up as an enterprise status, and it has to change some pieces of our Constitution to happen. But that's Colorado Cares, if any of you are interested on that. And we are at, so noon is our official hour for break, but we'll still be here, so if you have other things that you want to bring up with us.
Billy Day, you had a comment?
I just, very briefly, I'm Dr. Billy Day, I run for the school board in Aurora. I feel as passionately about public education as this gentleman was expressing. I have some bio on the background. I went to public schools, then I was on the Peace Corps in Sierra Leone. I taught in the DC public schools. Please look for my information, share it with your friends.